Now, I brought my partner, Dimitri, a t-shirt that reads, "I drink and I know things." He's actually wearing it right now. Now, I heard it was from the series Game of Thrones. And full disclosure, neither one of us have watched the show yet. I heard that's a bad word. But he wore it because it fit in more ways than one. But many of us don't need to think we know things, we just do. And what we don't know, we can learn with just a couple of clicks, disregarding the fact that deep expertise requires rigorous study and understanding. We transform ourselves into expert researchers, 15-second medical doctors, 30-second philosophers, and of course, those 1-minute theologians. This sense of instant expertise fuels our confidence in what we believe to be true, whether it's about God, politics, raising children, climate change, immigration, or any number of things. We often hold these beliefs with such certainty that we expect everyone else to see them the same way as we do. Author Paul Wilkins, drawing from behavioral psychology, neuroscience, and plain common sense, theorizes, however, and says 97% of people are likely wrong about almost everything, most of the time. According to Wilkins, people have the tendency to be creatures of habit, often stuck in myopic thinking or tunnel vision, and tend to live life on autopilot because thinking differently feels too scary and exhausting. People generally don't like change and choose the familiar ways, even if they no longer work for them. Wilkins argues that progress depends on the emotionally mature few, the 3%, who are willing to challenge the status quo and think differently. Now, I think I am one of those rare individuals who actually is right about 97% of the time. And you can ask Dimitri, he believes it too. He knows I'm right about. Just ask him. Recently, we had an argument that quickly escalated to me actually walking out of the house. Now, when I returned 15 minutes later, Dimitri had decided that I was indeed right all along. I'm just kidding. I know I'm not. Yes, he did. Obviously, most of us do think we know more than we do, and that we are right about what we think we know. Yet Isaac Newton, with all his discoveries, humbly admitted that he felt like a little boy playing by the seashore, uncovering bits of truth while the vast ocean of knowledge lay undiscovered before him. And Socrates, too, found wisdom in acknowledging his own ignorance, famously stating, I know nothing. What's often lost in the notion of our knowing and in our human interactions is humility. And true wisdom comes from humility and an acceptance of our own limitations. What we see in our society is an insatiable need to be right that likely functions as a protective response which seeks to uphold the belief in our own knowledge. When our identity and worldview are deeply tied to specific beliefs, any challenge to those beliefs can feel like a personal attack, triggering defensive behaviors to preserve our own sense of self. Folks, we are not what we think we know. So what's wrong with being right? Well, I'm so glad you asked. Everything. The relentless pursuit of being right often reflects a form of pride that distances us from the transformative power of love, of connection, and humility. There's a proverb that says, when pride comes, disgrace follows, but with humility comes wisdom. This drive can propel us toward great advancements. History is filled with examples of individuals whose persistent search for truth led to life-changing discoveries. NASA's pursuit of accuracy enabled them to reach the moon, and the quest for reliable data drove researchers like Vinton Cerf and Bob Kahn to develop the internet, transforming global communication. Oh, and don't let me forget Al Gore. That's a generational thing for those of you who might know. But more often, our need to be right does more harm. People addicted to being right will often deny the truth and twist facts to fit their views. They will cut themselves off from anyone who disagrees with them, seeing them as enemies. Now, does anyone in your life fit this description? If not, it might be you. Just kidding. But in extreme cases, this need to be right can lead to betraying friends and family and harming one's own well-being. It corrodes trust, communication, and intimacy, turning discussions into debates and partners into opponents. I've seen this in my own life. Often, our personal relationships and interactions can mirror the broader societal issues. Now, Dimitri often lets me win arguments, a lot. Now, the argument that we had that caused me to walk out of the house was around the conflict between Israel and Gaza. Dimitri has family in Israel, so his perspective is likely a deeply personal one, in a way that I can't fully grasp. But my heart in that moment was torn over the suffering in Gaza. But of course, this issue is far more complex than any of us really know. But my reaction was a bit out of character for me. As you all know me, I'm very peaceful. But I lost my cool. And we ministers, like anyone else, can get it wrong occasionally. But he responded with understanding and patience. But he held his ground. He would later say to me, whatever conflicts that are dividing our nation and the world, we will not let it divide our home. I reacted in a way that created a momentary chasm between us, but he responded in a way that brought us back together. The parable of the blind men and the elephant is a story that demonstrates how people can have different perspectives on the same thing. In the story, several blind men touch a different part of the elephant and describe what they feel. One touches the trunk and thinks the elephant is like a big snake. Another touches the leg and thinks it's like a tree trunk. And another touches the side and thinks it's like a wall. Each man is right about what he feels, but none of them can see the whole picture. Dimitri and I both had our viewpoints. We both were right about what we felt. And yet, we were both equally wrong as well, because we don't know everything that there is to know. We both cared for the whole elephant. We must consider the facts we state are often colored by our own views and our biases, and gaps in knowledge can skew the stories we tell. Our confirmation bias exacerbates this issue, leading to echo chambers where we only encounter opinions that reinforce our own. This results in a partial, distorted view, causing polarization, misunderstanding, and false narratives, which shape our perceptions of others and the world incorrectly. We should strive to engage with a variety of information sources and challenge our own viewpoints. By doing so, we can develop a more nuanced understanding of the issues at hand and reduce the risk of distorting facts to fit our preconceived ideas, preconceived notions. We must become depolarizers. And that's a new term that I have newly discovered. I'm just wanting to throw it in for good measure. Viktor Frankl said, between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space is the power to choose our response. In our responses lies our growth and our freedom. So what do we do when we face adversity in life, or when life presents us with a mixed bag of imperfect gifts? It may not be what you expected or hoped you'd get from life, but it's what you got. So the question then becomes, what are you going to do with it? To explore it objectively and possibly to discover hidden treasures and opportunities, it takes being fully present. And when life takes away from us, wisdom teaches us how we let go graciously and what we do after the loss. Nowhere in life does it apply more than when we face adversity, which is an inescapable part of life. Yet adversity helps us. If we let it, helps us grow emotionally and build resilience to change, resilience to transform, resilience to transcend. When we face challenges or difficult people, and we will face them, these experiences strengthen our emotional skills and encourage thoughtful responses over impulsive reactions. Emotional maturity involves recognizing our own biases, managing our reactions, and approaching conflicts with empathy. We can cultivate these traits through practices like mindful reflection, prayer, active listening, and seeking diverse perspectives, which can help us respond to challenges with wisdom rather than reactivity. Now, George Wallace, the governor of Alabama, was a staunch segregationist who famously declared in his 1963 inaugural address, segregation now, segregation tomorrow, and segregation. That is what he is most remembered for. An assassination attempt in 1972 left Wallace paralyzed and gave him time to reflect on his beliefs and actions. In the following years, Wallace publicly apologized for his past support of segregation and sought reconciliation with the African American community. He appointed several black officials in his later terms as governor and expressed regret for the pain he had caused. Malcolm X initially held very militant views as a spokesperson for the Nation of Islam, advocating for black separatism and denouncing white people as inherently evil. That is what he is most remembered for. Yet his pilgrimage to Mecca in 1964 exposed him to Muslims of all races, leading to a profound spiritual and ideological transformation. Malcolm X abandoned his separatist views and began to advocate for racial unity and cooperation, emphasizing human rights over racial issues, which is likely what got him killed. These are just two individuals who managed to transcend the ideology of separatism and who realized that inclusion and diversity are the answer. Shout out to DEI, baby. As the years go by, I've been learning to hold my beliefs and what I think I know a little bit more loosely. And I'm learning how to let go of my need to be right. Hasn't always served me well. I'm at that age where there are fewer years in front of me than behind me. My mother is the last of her generation. I've lost all my grandparents and my uncles and aunts. Yet I can still hear their voices telling me things that I can only now fully comprehend. You see, they knew some things. Life had taught them, as it is teaching us all. It's deeply disheartening and disappointing to witness people, especially those with a lifetime of experience, engaging in petty conflicts and debates over trivial matters. Equally troubling are those who intentionally cause harm or assert their righteousness to justify actions that will oppress individuals who are different than themselves. You'd think that with age comes wisdom and perhaps a bit of humility. They should know better. We should know better. In the end, what will have mattered the most? Might it be how we responded to life? Now, those of you who have heard me talk about my mother know that she loves to cook. But I think what she loves more than anything is her time with her family, what time she has left with us. She cooks, and I can just watch her watch us. Probably one of the greatest joys she has, just watching us eat. I think she likes watching us eat together. I don't know how many years I have with her, but I'm counting and treasuring every moment and day. I'm at that age where I know I will soon start losing my siblings, and as she has lost all of hers, and I don't want to spend a single moment creating division, conflict, and chaos. There are those in my family, and I'm sure those in yours, who prefer doing just that. But I just want what is real. And for me, that is family. That is my partner, Dimitri. That's my daughter, Terea, and my grandbaby, Aaliyah. My mother, Valerie, all my friends and my ministerial colleagues, and all of you. You see, none of us can see the whole picture. And what is likely to matter the most in the end, in our search for truth and for what's right, will not be the answers we think we found, but will most likely be the humility with which we approached our search and the compassion we extended to others along the way. In that grand scheme of things, the true measure of our journey lies not in the certainty we claim, but in the understanding and the kindness we share. As we tackle life's complex questions and contradictions, our understanding, compassion, and concern should begin to expand to include people, creatures, and things we previously neglected, misunderstood, or fought against. Eventually, we realize that although transformation and transcendence begins with a deeply personal process, the goal and implications of this process are really communal. We rise, and then we lift others. We begin to prioritize living honorably and with integrity. That is, we integrate all of our values, principles, rationales, and convictions into one harmonious whole. Finally, to transcend our human condition, we need to love fiercely. Nothing else, my friends, nothing else can compare to love in its generative, transformative, and transcending power. A great many prophets, artists, religious leaders, and other enlightened individuals have declared that only love can save the world. And the longer I live, the more I tend to agree with them. Embracing love as a transformative power means actively practicing forgiveness, showing compassion, and engaging in acts of kindness, even in difficult circumstances, even with difficult people. Love involves making tough choices to support and uplift others, which ultimately fosters deep connections and communal healing. Indeed, love may be the only thing that gives our lives meaning and what ultimately saves the world. So look around, my friends. If it appears that the world still needs saving, then I challenge you to pour more love on it. To pour more love on it. So as we navigate the complexities of the world, let's foster peace. Let us build bridges and thrive in our faith, knowing that it's not really about who's right. It's about being connected. Someone once said that we cannot shame ourselves into change. We can only love ourselves into evolution. Friends, let's love. Let's evolve. And let's keep moving forward. But let's do it together.
Gonna keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Never turning back. Never turning back.